Hello and welcome to what we're doing today, which is getting ready for a Turbolamik install for an 8 HP swap. So this device here is the mechatronics out of an 8 HP gearbox. We have our connector over there. That's where your mechatronic sleeve will bolt into. You would have then a little section will come out of there, and that will show out to the outside of the gearbox. This is the bit that's quite often gets replaced from leaks and so on. So when you see a service kit, you might see one of these mechatronic sleeves. So for the Turbolamik install, first off, they did say you need to have one with all of these pins inside the connector. Not all of them have that. I think maybe some later models they might have dropped off a few pins they weren't going to use. None of these systems use all of these pins anyway. There's quite a few of those are never going to be connected, but we're going to be using them in this. The conversion is getting done here with some parts from Whifbitz. They, I believe they are the UK distributor for Turbolamiks. This is their board, and there's the website address down the bottom. This board will be going inside, and we'll show you later on as we're getting that fixed up. You can do it yourself with wires, but you might as well get one of these things. It's a lot quicker to put in, and we'll go into that stall a little bit later on. We've also got a cover there that will go in on top of the old mechatronic unit and the brains. We'll even see into the brains in it in a short while. So once you've got your mechatronics off, I can't tell you how to do that because this has just been sent to me. I know certainly we can get rid of this part of a loom, which would run out over the top, and that's going to go to various different sensors and so on. That I don't believe is going to be needed. First thing we need to do to get in is we need to grind off some plastic rivets. So there's one there and one there. You'll see them, they'll be kind of like a slightly brown colour, part of the plastic there. And there's also one here and one over there. I've just used a Dremel with a small little ball mill sort of end on the top of it, just left and right over the top. So you just take the head of the rivets off, and then you need to separate this thing out. Can be a little bit tricky. We've got one clip over here, another clip on the other side, and then some of this will start to lift up. There's a lot of other clips. We'll just get rid of this metal gadget, as we're not going to be needing that just now. In fact, we're not going to be needing that at all. There's some more clips then where it starts getting a bit trickier. Let me see, I think there's one over here, and we also have this one, and I think this one over here, and then there we go. This thing will come open, and this here is where all of our mechatronic brains is. This is the actual ECU. So there's our cover, which will fit. There we go, he'll fit that way around. He's designed just to go over the whole lot. So what we'll have to do is cut this lid off next, get inside of it. I'll get the Dremel on that, and then once we've got that off, we'll have a look, and I'll show you the next step. Right, we are now Dremeled our way through. What I've done is just cut round each one of these edges, left a little bit of metal on there, so this will still go on. There's a bit of play on that. We'll glue that stuff on, this little lid on later on, just for a bit of protection. So obviously don't go right down to the side walls, but there we've got it cut. And this is going to be the big reveal because I haven't looked inside of this yet. Safety glasses on, by the way, when you're doing this, because you do get a lot of sparks. And also check where your sparks are going. I've had it before. I've been grinding and steel wool has been sitting on my desk and the steel wool catches fire. So little bits and pieces like that, just keep it safe. So, oh, there we go. And there it is. That is our mechatronic brain. Will this come off? Come on, it'll get there. This can be scorching hot if you've only just done it. So this here then is our mechatronics. I believe there's that guy there might be our processor. These bits there look, there could be memory and so on, or maybe that's the processor down there. Very hard to tell. This is all just let me just sit down there. Raw silicon. The raw silicon chips on, I believe it's a ceramic substrate, and then there is the sticky kind of gel that's put over the top. You'll sometimes see very similar stuff like this in glow plug modules and ABS modules, and one of the common issues you'd have on those is these little bond wires breaking. So we're going to be going and we will be taking off these bond wires to get in. But that then is our little board in the middle. I bet he's going to be glued down, I would have thought. Yeah, he's fine ceramic, so that's him. So yeah, he's not going to be used. He's going to be completely bypassed by this new board, which will go that way around, I would imagine. As of yet, there's no connections down the bottom. So he's going to get in there. Have we got the space to get in? We have got the space to get in. So next up now will be cleaning him up to get this fella in. We'll have to cut all these little bond wires and then get the board soldered in. So I'm just going to be snapping these off. You drag them off, wiggle them a little bit, and they will eventually go. You'll just metal fatigue the other connection here on the board, and eventually they'll go. So I've got to go around, get rid of all of those. There is also, from the cutting, I was going around and just checking, because you do sometimes get these little stainless whiskers here, and it's good to make sure you get all of this stuff. That's a little bit just launched into there, so we want to make sure we get all of these off. There's another bits of legs there that didn't come off too well. Come on, there we go, he's gone. This guy. So yeah, we'll go around now, clean up all of this stuff, get rid of any loose bits of metal. That's another leg, or is it maybe it's a bit of a cutting from the metal. Now we'll go and strip all of these off, and then we'll get into our next bit. We have all our legs torn off now. This is the kind of thing I mentioned earlier, is these wire little splinters we can have after the cutting. Make sure you get rid of all of that kind of stuff, as you don't want any other little fragments and loose bits and pieces of metal floating around. So what I will do is I will go around with the Dremel and just file these edges down again. There's our board. In fact, if we catch the light, you can sometimes even see the silicon there in these memory chips. It seems a real shame to me to be losing these things. You know, I'll be programming them and coding them, and you know, it's the kind of thing I have a lot of respect for these tiny little computers. And there's one now, and fortunately they are glued in solid against this stainless steel backplate, so I can't take him out and save him. He unfortunately is going to get sealed in there once we get done. So we'll have to do a bit of a clean up. You can see obviously these bits of metal dust and stuff around there. We'll give all that a bit of a clean up. I have gone round every one of these legs, and none of them are continuous with our outer metal case. So if you are fitting one of these things, you can check all of these, and you've got to make sure that none of these ever make a beep with your multimeter onto the outside, as that suggests you've got some metal underneath bridging them. So I'll give it a bit of a clean up, and then we'll get the board in, and then we'll have to start some soldering. So that's him all cleaned up now. It does look kind of worse than it ever did before because of all of the dust we've got here in this gel. But all the loose stuff out. Anything else that's stuck into the gel is in that gel. That won't be coming out anywhere. Some of the stuff I did, in fact, is I tore off some of this gel and dabbed it around to just pick up the dust. But blasted it out with a bit of air, a bit of isopropyl alcohol, get rid of any traces of oils and grease and so on. And now what we've got to do is stick our board in. So he will fit in. I've cut him a little bit on the short side, but he will. There he goes. And we are in now. And now we just need to make our solder connections. Doesn't need to be absolutely everywhere, obviously. It's just where we see these little tabs. So we'll need to go around there, get a little blob of solder. If it will focus, there we go. A little bit of blob of solder to go from each one of these pads out to one of these. So what we have is this collection here up the side. They go off to the mechatronic plug, which is just on the other side of there, going in. These are all been your original inputs for power, ground, switched ignition and CAN bus and so on. You can see some of these here never had any wires on them because they were never being used before. The other sides then, this is where all your solenoids will be connected to. So what is happening is an unused pin from the outside will be going directly off to a solenoid or something along those lines on what would have been the output side of the original electronics underneath. So that will go through then into our other bits and pieces. There's these, I've got no idea what that is, but on the other side of this board there is all the different connections for the solenoids. So instead of them going in through into here and our old mechatronics activating them, we're looping them and bypassing them straight out to all of these pins, and then the Turbolamik standalone ECU will handle everything on the outside. And that gets rid of a lot of issues. Certainly there's going to be no issues with the immobilizer, which you'll have in a lot of, for example, the BMW F-Series gearboxes. And it makes them just very flexible. Plus you will then have full control of it through the ECU, through the standalone controller. And you've got the proper manual for all of the functions. So there's a lot of other stuff you can be doing with them. So what I'll do now is I'll get a bit of soldering done, and we'll get this thing ready. So I've got a couple of these started now. Start off, I use a little bit of this flux. I've already got some flux on these ones, and then we go in with our solder, and we do need quite a bit. So if I can get my hand out the way so you can see. Start off getting it onto the pad, and then we have to get over onto our little button as well. We needed a good bit of heat to get through, and there we go. We've got a blob now on both, but we need to make sure we've got them linked. So a little bit more in, and there we go. And that then links our little button head contact through into our circuit board. We'll go on to the next one now. I'm heating them both up there. Good bit of heat. We're starting to get solder to start to stick onto each one. Come on, and so that's the the issue is the solder does like to stick to itself. Now if we get more in there, there we go, and we get the join there linking the two of them together. Let me just check that one. See, sometimes in fact if you do go back to them, you can end up resetting them. So what I'll do is I'll go around all of these now, solder them in. I think I've just ruined that one by heating them up so they're separated out again. I'll go through all of these ones now, get them all done, and then I'll go and do another check, continuity, and make sure that we're not got any shorts or any issues like that. Right, there we go. So it is maybe half an hour later. I've got through and soldered all these little joints on. It is the kind of thing you do need to take your time on it. It can get frustrating and it is kind of awkward. The thing about solder is, as I've said, solder likes to stick to metal, and it doesn't like jumping over gaps. So it can take a while to, you'll certainly get your solder on the pad. It'll take a while before your solder will start to wet the head of the pin you want, and then you need to bucket loads of solder in to get a blob that will bridge the two and make your contact through out into here. So obviously you can see these circuit board traces that link up various things. So it can be a bit of a pain, and yep, you might find that as you're soldering one of them, you move on to the next one, and if you touch something, one of the previous joints, you can re-separate them and so on. So you will need to go through and check to make sure that they're all done. Also, of course, go through and check for any bridges. Make sure you haven't bridged any contacts. You can see little bits like if we go, you know, do this tiny little offshoot of a leg here heading to the one next to him. He's not connected there, but I think at one stage he was. Again, another bit of a swipe of the soldering iron to separate them, and then as you separate these two, they separate then from pin to pad, and then you've got to get the solder back onto them. So it can be a bit of a pain making sure you get all of them done, but I've gone through them all now, and that's it. Looks a little, so it's a little dark down there, but he is a solid joint there. It's not a crack or anything like that, it's a reflection. We've got a little spike coming up the top there, and I've gone through as well with the multimeter, one pin on our outer ground, and then dabbed each one of these legs, making sure we're not getting a beep, because if we are getting a beep, that means that we've got too much solder is run around the back of the tab and down and onto the case, and it could be sort of shorting against the case and causing other problems. But no, it all worked out okay. Bit of a clean up then later on. You can still see some little bits and pieces of gunk and crap down there from the solder flux. Clean up then with isopropyl alcohol. I've given a wipe down round the edge of this box as well from traces of transmission fluid. A wipe off of the general plastics as well, just to make sure there's no other bits of dust and dirt, because again this will be going inside the gearbox, so we do want to keep it all nice and clean. Getting rid of any other bits and pieces. What have we got there? No, that's just part of the isopropyl alcohol and flux. Making sure there's no little traces of the fluff paper roll if you've been cleaning with that, as you don't want that to be swimming around your new gearbox. But there we go. So the next things that I'll be doing is I will put a bit of epoxy around these joints, just to give a little bit more of a mechanical fix through to the case, help it sort of isolate it more from sort of vibration and so on, and then also around the top to glue our lid on, who will fit just like that. And there we go, there you go, you can see the logo, and that's it. And obviously, yep, as we say, keep it all nice and clean. Like, you don't want that, for example, that's one of our little legs that we pulled off earlier. So yeah, keep everything clean. A bit more epoxy now, and then it should be ready to all go back together. So there we have it, with our epoxy just put round. That's mainly just on the edges. Again, bit of mechanical protection, and also it will stop, not that there is any dust, but just so nothing else ever does fall into it, and bridge a couple of connections. There shouldn't be, because again, we've got it cleaned out and we're going to have a lid on, but that's a little bit of extra, won't cause any problems. I've given the outside of the steel here on the plate a wipe out with some brake cleaner, as there's going to be trace of transmission fluid, and the same for our lid. So all that's left now is I'm going to put some epoxy around the lid, stick that on, and that's it, job done. And that's it. So I just got the epoxy around there, put him on, a little bit of a wiggle to make sure we've got good contact, we've taken out all the bubbles and that kind of stuff. Press him down, let him sit, and that's it done. It is the next morning now. I've let the epoxy cure overnight, so that's all solid, and I did run into a bit of a problem, which is getting this top cover to fit back on. So what I've had to do is grind a bit of plastic around off on these edges. This is where the cover will end up sitting, in this section. That's where the original parts would have been. That might have been now down to me. So when I did my cuts, I did them on this inside and I left that radius in. I think maybe if it was cut just on that side of the radius, this might get a fraction of it a bit lower, as we're up maybe a millimetre or millimetre and a half. With that down just a little bit further, we might have avoided this, but not a big problem. I've got the Dremel. It's one of these jobs that you need a Dremel anyway to be cutting this thing open. So if you've got a Dremel, just shave a bit of that plastic off, and then you'll get it to clip on. And there we go, all back together. This little gadget up here, there's a sensor there for something. This is magnetic, and that did catch quite a bit of metal flakes from the grinding. Now what I did to clean that up was get a neodymium magnet, and because that's stronger than the magnet we have in here, pulled off all the filings. So there's a tip for you if you're struggling to clean this stuff up. You can wipe it, and then you'll often find the magnet stuff will flick back to it. But get yourself, if you've got like a strong magnet, something ripped out of a hard drive, then this will do the job, and you'll pull off any kind of filings and get that all nice and clean. So we're not going to be disturbing any signals. So there it is. That's the whole lot back together, ready to be sent up to the customer, stuck into the car, and that's it then. Should be lighting up the tyres before Christmas. Right, thank you for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.